英語聞き流しリスニング、英語テキストと MP3 ダウンロード、その他の物語はホームページからお聞きいただけます。88thpp.com 88thpp.com
25th August. Well, Daddy, Master Jervy's here. And such a nice time as we're having. At least I am, and I think he is, too. He has been here 10 days and he doesn't show any signs of going. The way Mrs. Semple pampers that man is scandalous. If she indulged him as much when he was a baby, I don't know how he ever turned out so well. He and I eat at a little table set on the side porch, or sometimes under the trees, or, when it rains or is cold, in the best parlor. He just picks out the spot he wants to eat in and Carrie trots after him with the table. Then if it has been an awful nuisance, and she has had to carry the dishes very far, she finds $1 under the sugar bowl. He is an awfully companionable sort of man, though you would never believe it to see him casually. He looks at first glance like a true Pendleton, but he isn't in the least. He is just as simple and unaffected and sweet as he can be. That seems a funny way to describe a man, but it's true. He's extremely nice with the farmers around here. He meets them in a sort of man-to-man fashion that disarms them immediately. They were very suspicious at first. They didn't care for his clothes. And I will say that his clothes are rather amazing. He wears knickerbockers and pleated jackets and white flannels and riding clothes with puffed trousers. Whenever he comes down in anything new, Mrs. Semple, beaming with pride, walks around and views him from every angle and urges him to be careful where he sits down. She is so afraid he will pick up some dust. It bores him dreadfully. He's always saying to her, "Run along, Lizzie, and tend to your work. You can't boss me any longer. I've grown up." It's awfully funny to think of that great big, long-legged man, he's nearly as long-legged as you, Daddy, ever sitting in Mrs. Semple's lap and having his face washed. Particularly funny when you see her lap. She has 2 laps now, and 3 chins. But he says that once she was thin and wiry and spry and could run faster than he. Such a lot of adventures we're having. We've explored the country for miles, and I've learned to fish with funny little flies made of feathers. Also to shoot with a rifle and a revolver. Also to ride horseback. There's an astonishing amount of life in Old Grove. We fed him on oats for 3 days, and he shied at a calf and almost ran away with me. Wednesday. We climbed Sky Hill Monday afternoon. That's a mountain near here, not an awfully high mountain, perhaps, no snow on the summit, but at least you are pretty breathless when you reach the top. The lower slopes are covered with woods, but the top is just piled rocks and open moor. We stayed up for the sunset and built a fire and cooked our supper. Master Jervy did the cooking. He said he knew how better than me, and he did, too, because he's used to camping. Then we came down by moonlight, and, when we reached the wood trail where it was dark, by the light of an electric bulb that he had in his pocket. It was such fun. He laughed and joked all the way and talked about interesting things. He's read all the books I've ever read, and a lot of others besides. It's astonishing how many different things he knows. We went for a long tramp this morning and got caught in a storm. Our clothes were drenched before we reached home, but our spirits not even damp. You should have seen Mrs. Semple's face when we dripped into her kitchen. "Oh, Master Jervy, Miss Judy. You are soaked through. Dear. Dear. What shall I do? That nice new coat is perfectly ruined." She was awfully funny. You would have thought that we were 10 years old, and she a distracted mother. I was afraid for a while that we weren't going to get any jam for tea. Saturday. I started this letter ages ago, but I haven't had a second to finish it. Isn't this a nice thought from Stevenson? The world is so full of a number of things. I am sure we should all be as happy as kings. It's true, you know. The world is full of happiness and plenty to go round, if you are only willing to take the kind that comes your way. The whole secret is in being pliable. In the country, especially, there are such a lot of entertaining things. I can walk over everybody's land, and look at everybody's view, and dabble in everybody's brook, and enjoy it just as much as though I owned the land, and with no taxes to pay. It's Sunday night now, about 11 o'clock, and I am supposed to be getting some beauty sleep, but I had black coffee for dinner, so, no beauty sleep for me. "This morning," said Mrs. Semple to Mr. Pendleton, with a very determined accent. We have to leave here at 10:15 in order to get to church by 11. Very well, Lizzie, said Master Jervie, you have the buggy ready, and if I'm not dressed, just go on without waiting. We'll wait, said she. As you please, said he, only don't keep the horses standing too long. Then while she was dressing, he told Carrie to pack up a lunch, and he told me to scramble into my walking clothes, and we slipped out the back way and went fishing. It discommoded the household dreadfully, because Lock Willow of a Sunday dines at 2. But he ordered dinner at 7, he orders meals whenever he chooses, you would think the place were a restaurant, and that kept Carrie and Amasai from going driving. But he said it was all the better because it wasn't proper for them to go driving without a chaperone, and anyway, he wanted the horses himself to take me driving. Did you ever hear anything so funny? And poor Mrs. Semple believes that people who go fishing on Sundays go afterwards to a sizzling hot hell. She is awfully troubled to think that she didn't train him better when he was small and helpless and she had the chance. Besides, she wished to show him off in church. Anyway, we had our fishing, he caught 4 little ones, and we cooked them on a campfire for lunch. They kept falling off our spiked sticks into the fire, so they tasted a little ashy, but we ate them. We got home at 4 and went driving at 5 and had dinner at 7, and at 10 I was sent to bed and here I am, writing to you. I'm getting a little sleepy, though. Good night. Here is a picture of the one fish I caught. Ship ahoy, Cap'n Longlegs. Avast. Belay? Yo ho ho, a bottle of rum. Guess what I'm reading? Our conversation these past 2 days has been nautical and piratical. Isn't Treasure Island fun? Did you ever read it, or wasn't it written when you were a boy? Stevenson only got £30 for the serial rights. I don't believe it pays to be a great author. Maybe I'll be a school teacher. Excuse me for filling my letters so full of Stevenson, my mind is very much engaged with him at present. He comprises Lock Willow's library. I've been writing this letter for 2 weeks, and I think it's about long enough. Never say, Daddy, that I don't give details. I wish you were here, too. We'd all have such a jolly time together. I like my different friends to know each other. I wanted to ask Mr. Pendleton if he knew you in New York. I should think he might. You must move in about the same exalted social circles, and you are both interested in reforms and things, but I couldn't, for I don't know your real name. It's the silliest thing I ever heard of, not to know your name. Mrs. Lippett warned me that you were eccentric. I should think so. Affectionately, Judy. P.S. On reading this over, I find that it isn't all Stevenson. There are 1 or 2 glancing references to Master Jervie. 10th September. Dear Daddy. He is gone, and we are missing him. When you get accustomed to people or places or ways of living, and then have them snatched away, it does leave an awfully empty, gnawing sort of sensation. I'm finding Mrs. Semple's conversation pretty unseasoned food. College opens in 2 weeks and I shall be glad to begin work again. I have worked quite a lot this summer though, 6 short stories and 7 poems. Those I sent to the magazines all came back with the most courteous promptitude. But I don't mind. It's good practice. Master Jervie read them, he brought in the post, so I couldn't help his knowing, and he said they were dreadful. They showed that I didn't have the slightest idea of what I was talking about. Master Jervie doesn't let politeness interfere with truth, but the last one I did, just a little sketch late in college, he said wasn't bad, and he had it typewritten, and I sent it to a magazine. They've had it 2 weeks, maybe they're thinking it over. You should see the sky. There's the queerest orange-colored light over everything. We're going to have a storm. It commenced just that moment with tremendously big drops and all the shutters banging. I had to run to close the windows, while Carrie flew to the attic with an armful of milk pans to put under the places where the roof leaks, and then, just as I was resuming my pen, I remembered that I'd left a cushion and rug and hat and Matthew Arnold's poems under a tree in the orchard, so I dashed out to get them, all quite soaked. The red cover of the poems had run into the inside. Dover Beach in the future will be washed by pink waves. A storm is awfully disturbing in the country. You are always having to think of so many things that are out of doors and getting spoiled. Thursday. Daddy. What do you think? The postman has just come with 2 letters. First. My story is accepted. $50. Alors. I'm an author. Second. A letter from the college secretary. I'm to have a scholarship for 2 years that will cover board and tuition. It was founded for marked proficiency in English with general excellency in other lines. And I've won it. I applied for it before I left, but I didn't have an idea I'd get it, on account of my freshman bad work in maths and Latin. But it seems I've made it up. I am awfully glad, Daddy, because now I won't be such a burden to you. The monthly allowance will be all I'll need, and maybe I can earn that with writing or tutoring or something. I'm longing to go back and begin work. Yours ever, Jerusha Abbott, author of When the Sophomores Won the Game. For sale at all news stands, price 10 cents. 26 September. Dear Daddy Longlegs. Back at college again and an upperclassman. Our study is better than ever this year, faces the south with 2 huge windows and oh, so furnished. Julia, with an unlimited allowance, arrived 2 days early and was attacked with a fever for settling. We have new wallpaper and oriental rugs and mahogany chairs, not painted mahogany which made us sufficiently happy last year, but real. It's very gorgeous, but I don't feel as though I belonged in it. I'm nervous all the time for fear I'll get an ink spot in the wrong place. And, Daddy, I found your letter waiting for me. Pardon, I mean your secretary's. Will you kindly convey to me a comprehensible reason why I should not accept that scholarship? I don't understand your objection in the least. But anyway, it won't do the slightest good for you to object, for I've already accepted it and I am not going to change. That sounds a little impertinent, but I don't mean it so. I suppose you feel that when you set out to educate me, you'd like to finish the work, and put a neat period, in the shape of a diploma, at the end. But look at it just a second from my point of view. I shall owe my education to you just as much as though I let you pay for the whole of it, but I won't be quite so much indebted. I know that you don't want me to return the money, but nevertheless, I'm going to want to do it, if I possibly can, and winning this scholarship makes it so much easier. I was expecting to spend the rest of my life in paying my debts, but now I shall only have to spend 1/2 of the rest of it. I hope you understand my position and won't be cross. The allowance I shall still most gratefully accept. It requires an allowance to live up to Julia and her furniture. I wish that she had been reared to simpler tastes, or else that she were not my roommate. This isn't much of a letter. I meant to have written a lot, but I've been hemming 4 window curtains and 3 portieres. I'm glad you can't see the length of the stitches, and polishing a brass desk set with tooth powder, very uphill work, and sawing off picture wire with manicure scissors, and unpacking 4 boxes of books, and putting away 2 trunkfuls of clothes. It doesn't seem believable that Jerusha Abbott owns 2 trunks full of clothes, but she does, and welcoming back 50 dear friends in between. Opening day is a joyous occasion. Good night, Daddy dear, and don't be annoyed because your chick is wanting to scratch for herself. She's growing up into an awfully energetic little hen, with a very determined cluck and lots of beautiful feathers, all due to you. Affectionately, Judy.
英語聞き流しリスニング、英語テキストと MP3 ダウンロード、その他の物語はホームページからお聞きいただけます。88thpp.com 88thpp.com